Today is March the 18th, 2015. My name is Tanya Finchum, along with Alex Bishop. We're with Oklahoma State University, and today we're in Edmond, Oklahoma to speak with Florence Tustison. And this is part of our Oklahoma 100-Year Life project, so thank you for meeting with us today.
Thank you.
Let's start with having you tell us where and when you were born.
I was born December the 25th, 1914, at about a mile north of Carnegie, Oklahoma.
A Christmas baby.
Yes, a little one, they told me.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have one brother, 2 years older, and he was born on Thanksgiving.
Wow. He probably wasn't too thrilled to have you for a Christmas present, was he?
Probably not.
Were you born at home or in a hospital?
At my grandparents' boarders' home. We had gone out there for Christmas dinner, and I interrupted the Christmas dinner. Instead of Santa Claus coming, the doctor came. So anyway, that's where I was born.
You made house calls.
Yes.
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 And what did your parents do for a living?
Well, at that time my father farmed, and mother didn't work outside the home. She was just a homemaker, took care of the family, and she, on the farm, my grandparents moved from that place after I was born, and we moved there, and mother raised geese, and she'd, in the, I guess be the spring, she would pick the down from those geese to make pillows and feather beds. And those feather beds always felt good in the wintertime.
Kept you warm, huh?
Right, right. And both of my grandparents eventually moved to Carnegie, and so.
That you consider that your hometown?
Yeah,
Carnegie.
Yeah. My mother's people came from England to America. My father's ancestors came from Germany. So I'm English and Pennsylvania Dutch.
And how did they end up in Oklahoma?
Well, they just migrated from, they both were in Pennsylvania, and one of them came down through, well, into Tennessee and into Oklahoma. That was the mother's people. Daddy's people came from right straight down from Pennsylvania to Oklahoma.
Did they participate in one of the land runs?
No, but one of them drew land, and from El Reno, and the other one bought the farm and from an Indian family that had owned it. So, and I have that.
Wow.
Where I think it was President McKinley is the one that signed the papers.
On the land grant?
Mm-hmm.
Has it been in the family then 100 years? Or
Well,
close?
Close to that.
Okay.
Because, well, yeah, more than that, because they had it when I was born. See, and I'm 100.
Okay.
So,
And it's still in, you still have it, or it's still in the family?
part of it.
Okay.
I still have 20 acres, is all. The rest of it's, the Highway 58 goes out north from Carnegie, and the property was on that. And I sold all that part off, but I kept 20 acres on the back side. So,
Is the house you were born in still standing?
no.
No.
no. But the house that Mother's father built at Alfalfa, which is about 10 miles north of Carnegie, it's still living. It's still standing, and the people that have it now have remodeled it. And it's still a pretty place. One of those square type houses, you know, with that funny little roof. That's where Mother grew up after they came from Arabia, eastern Oklahoma is where they came to. And then they migrated over to Carnegie.
And they were in Tennessee for a while? Your mother's your mother's side?
Mother's people were.
Do you know what part?
No.
Okay.
It's probably in the papers that I have, but I don't.
Don't remember. Well, where did you go to elementary school?
Carnegie. And my first year, I went to a little one-room country school. One room, well, I guess you'd call it country. It was in the north edge of town. And there was, of course, one teacher, and I don't remember how many students, but we had a pump out in the yard that's where we got our water. And then the two-hole building was on out farther from that.
The outhouses, huh?
And we did have hot lunch program there because we'd take our soup or beans or whatever in a tin bucket, and just before the noon, the teacher would put that up on top of this big wood stove. So that was the hot lunch program.
Who knew? Well, how would you get there?
Well, we lived on the farm at that time, and my father would bring us in. He had a truck at that time, and he'd bring me, drop me off there, and go on to the south edge of town, and where the elementary school, big elementary school was. And then for second grade, I started in that building too.
What was the name of the one room, do you remember?
The one room.
The one room school, what was the name of it, do you
I
remember?
don't know.
That's okay.
I don't know. I guess it was just Carnegie.
Yeah, they've tore so many down, I'm always curious.
Yes.
So you went to Carnegie to finish the 12th grade at Carnegie? What year did you graduate?
32.
Okay.
1932.
Did you have a favorite subject?
Home economics. I loved that teacher. Well, when I was just a kid, I always played house, you know, and I had that, of course. But when I got in 9th grade in junior high, Miss Muller, M-U-L-L-E-R, was my teacher. And I had her 4 years in home economics. And one of the strange things that I remember we prepared was baked bananas. Baked bananas. I never heard of it then or since. But anyway.
Were they good?
Well, I can't say they were. We ate them though.
What were some of the other things she taught? How to sew or
Oh, yes.
manage, do the budget or what?
Mostly it was cooking and sewing. And, of course, how to get along with people. That, I've forgotten what they called it then, but anyway.
Would there be boys in the class?
No.
All girls?
This is strictly girls.
Did you play sports when you were in high school?
When I was a senior, I played basketball. I was so short, but I was the jump center. You know, back in those days, we had the 2 courts, in jump center. I could jump high. I guess I was small. Didn't have much weight on me.
What were your uniforms like? What would you play in?
Well, they were down here at that time, just above the knee.
Not bloomers, but something similar?
Yeah, well, no, they weren't bloomers.
Just
they
shorts.
were just pants, you know, like kind of like the boys wear the long, right above the knee.
Well, once you graduated from high school, what did you do?
Well, I didn't get to go to school the first semester, but because that was kind of in the beginning of Depression time. And mother had an aunt and uncle that lived at Chickasha, and the OCW college was there. So a friend of mine went to OCW that semester and stayed with my aunt and uncle, and we had cooking privileges there. Well, the next year I didn't want to go back there, so I decided to go to Weatherford. So went there, and I had a job of taking care of a man and his wife who worked. I cleaned their house, made their bed, and they had one of these Murphy beds, is that what you call it? Where it goes up in the wall. Had to put that up, and then I got their evening meal for them. And I also waited tables at a restaurant downtown. I tried to think of that, but I can't. Well, anyway, I first started out washing silverware. Well, that was a job. So they then put me as waitress. So, and I went to school there 2 years. Excuse me. And let's see, that was in 36, 35. And I got a 2-year certificate to teach elementary.
Okay. And did you do that after that?
Yes, I taught in a one-room country school. And had children in every grade except the 7. And one night, one of the boys who lived with his aunt and uncle there, they had a fire and he was killed, and 2 of the small children of the family were killed, burned. And we, mothers of some of the students and I went to the funeral there in Carnegie, and it was a sad occasion, of course. But back in this one-room country school, I lived with a family that lived about a quarter of a mile from the school. They had 2 children in school, and we'd take our lunch basket and go to school. And there's where we also had hot lunch program there. So,
Well, would you walk at that point still?
yeah, we'd walk to school in snow or whatever.
About how many children would be in the school?
I thought I'd bring a picture to show you that school, and I forgot it. I counted 12. And then one was killed, and so I just had one. And I just taught 1 year there. I didn't like that. So, well, back to Weatherford. I went from Chickasha to Weatherford. And I met a nice young fella, and we went together with those 2 years. And while I was teaching, he was teaching in a 2-room country school up near him. And anyway, we both decided that we wanted to go to Stillwater. So we worked at Oklahoma City that summer, got enough money, went to Stillwater that year, and that's where I decided at Weatherford I wanted to be a home ec teacher, and we went there, and he was in agriculture. So the second year, he had 1 year, and I had a half a year left. So we didn't have money, and I wrote to my uncle in Washington, D.C. I asked him if I could borrow $100. He loaned us $100, so we got married September the 3rd, 1938, and that was my mother and daddy's wedding anniversary. So they came up to Stillwater for our wedding. And that last year, he went to school and I worked at Woolworth that year. And then he graduated in '39, and he got a ag school teaching agriculture. We lived there 3 years. Excuse me. Then you want to ask me something else?
Now I want to ask you about Woolworths. So Stillwater had a Woolworths?
Uh-huh.
Where was it? Downtown, I'm assuming, but
Yes. Well, on the corner, I think it's in that when you first hit that main street, there was a clothing department right there.
there was a Katz, K-A-T-Z.
Could be.
It may have been further down though. I don't know. I'm not from Stillwater, so.
I don't know, but there was a clothing store there, and there was an elderly lady that worked there, and she had a daughter who was, she was about your age anyway. And then next door was Woolworth.
Okay.
But the mother and daughter lived in the apartment building, which was just a block east of that corner on the north side. It was big 2-story building. And they lived in the north apartment, we lived in the south apartment, and we shared a bathroom that you had to go out in the hall and to the bathroom. That was quite a nuisance, but we were just there that 1 year, so then we...
So you didn't finish at OAMC at that time?
No.
You went back later? Okay. So when he graduated, he became a teacher at a high school?
Mm-hmm.
And
Freedom.
Freedom.
It's out near, well, it's between Woodward and Alva, just off of the highway south of it.
You have any fond memories of campus, Oklahoma A&M?
Well, Theta Pond is one of them. Well, one bad memory, one time I was going from the library to the dormitory. The path went between 2 trees, cedar bushes, and as I was going through there, a bee got behind my glass and stung me. And of course I was all swollen up. I went to the infirmary after that, when that happened. And I looked like a mess.
I think that infirmary building is still standing.
Is it really? Well.
The library, of course, has changed since the 30s.
Yeah.
30s.
It used to be known as the, what are those trees? What was known as, I can't remember.
Well, one of the trees on campus, there's magnolia trees.
That's it. It was known as the Magnolia campus because there were so many. I don't know if they're still there now.
There's still a few.
Are there?
Yeah. I hadn't heard that, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you married, he finished, off you went.
Yes, right.
Okay, from there, what happened there?
There. Well, at Freedom,
Well, before you go there, let's back up though. During that time period, there was the Depression. Do you have anything you want to say about that period? I mean, you got married during the Depression,
yeah. Well, of course there wasn't any money. I made $10 a week. I took $9.37 home. That's what we lived on. And this $100 that I had borrowed bought books and tuition and whatever. And when our daughter was born, she was, let's see, about 2.5 or 3 months old. We moved to Washita, which is a little town between Fort Cobb and Anadarko. He replaced his brother who had taught there, and the brother went to Carnegie, my hometown. And while we were there 3 years, our second daughter was born.
Okay.
And the Washita school was going to close, so he had to look for another school. And I don't know, I guess it was the spring of that year, 45, that the superintendent and the board member, president, came to interview him. And the reason they came, we had gone to Western Oklahoma, to Altus, and to Sentinel to see the departments. And Sentinel didn't have agriculture at that time. They were wanting somebody that could set up a new program there. So after they interviewed Herbert, then he was hired. And at that time, the Burns Flat opened up for flight school, and they built the facilities for that, and the people that from there had gone to California and other places seeking work. Well, when that opened up, they came back and wanted their places back. So there wasn't any place for the family. So the first few months, Herbert slept in the superintendent's office on a cot for 3 months, the janitor there then felt sorry for him and found out his personality and that he was a nice person. So he asked his wife to rent their front bedroom to him. So he did. And so that summer, we went, the two little ones and I went over and spent one night there. The children slept on a pallet by the side of the bed, and Herbert and I had the bed. And they were such nice people. And then later, we found a house. Wasn't very big, but it was a home. It was a house and home. And we were there a while. Oh, I don't know how many years, just a few years. They wanted their house, so we had to move. We found a place out in the country, not too far, that we could get. So we were there a while. We had to move. So we just moved all over that town. And the girls were not in school yet, so this next home that we had, I had got the 3rd grade to teach, and I had to have someone take care of the children. They were at school. Or Jean was, but Donna wasn't, I believe. Well, anyway, the man that the janitor's wife where we stayed, she took care of the children for me that year. Then, let's see, the next house we lived in was an old house, and they didn't have baseboards around the bottom, and cold. Oh, it didn't have any insulation or anything in it, I don't think, but it was so cold. And so then I told Herbert that my next teaching job, that my salary was going to go to borrow a loan to build us a house. So that's what happened. I think we rented it seemed like almost every red house in Sentinel. At the time, I said, I just wonder if people think that we have to move because we don't pay the bills. But that wasn't it.
So how long did you teach the 3rd grade then?
Oh, I just taught 1 year.
1 year.
And then went back and I finished up my
Bachelor's?
my BC, what do you call it, bachelor's. And that was in 52. And had quite a struggle there.
And that was back at OSU or Oklahoma A&M?
Mm-hmm.
Did the whole family move with you?
No. At that time, they were Don was still in grade school, but Jean, I think, was, I guess they both were in 8th grade. But at OSU, when I transferred, they accepted my credits. Then when it came down for me to graduate, one of these teachers decided that she wasn't going to accept one of them, so I didn't graduate. So called my husband, and he came up, and we went to the head of agriculture, forgotten his name, and he told us to go to so many of those my teachers and get an okay. Well, one of them wasn't there. So I went back the next week, and that one was there, but this one was gone. I had the awfulest time trying to get through. So I didn't get to graduate, but I did. They did send me my certificate. So that was it. Didn't get to wear a cap and gown.
Shucks.
So,
But you took classes while your children and your husband was still in
yeah.
Sentinel. Did you commute back and forth, or did
Yeah.
you live on? How did you work that out?
Well, my parents and my neighbor next door and my husband took care of the children. Several things happened. I'd go home and something happened, and I'd say, tell the children now, don't do so-and-so, or stay at home, and don't let other kids come in, and that sort of thing. That was mostly in the summertime. So
You were determined to finish.
I was determined to finish. That, let's see, that was in 52, I think. And I got my master's in 56.
61?
What?
61?
It was 61, is that what it was?
For your master's.
Master's for 61.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes.
And what did you do in the between getting your bachelor's and your master's? What did you do?
I taught home economics.
Okay. In Sentinel?
Uh-huh. Taught there 22 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And did your husband keep teaching vocational
Yes.
or ag?
Yes. He resigned in 73 and went to Fort Cobb, Votech, and taught 3 years over there. And I stayed at Sentinel, and that year, first year there, that he was gone. And let's see, that was in 74. I retired in 74.
So you've been about 65 then?
Mm-hmm.
It's mandatory. I guess 65 was mandatory at that
Uh-huh,
time.
right. And I took early retirement. Well, I wasn't quite 65, but I took early retirement, early pay, and okay.
That's been about 40 years, okay. Since you retired. I'm doing the math. About 40 years.
Yeah.
You enjoyed teaching?
Oh, yes. I had, when I first started, I had eighth graders and 4 classes of junior through seniors. And then, after I taught probably 18 or 20 years, I had exchange classes with my husband. I took his boys and he took my girls. And that boys' class was something else. I had one boy that would come in and sit in a chair, lean back, put his feet up on the table. And of course, that was a no-no. So, anyway, 2 of the other boys in that class came to me one day after class and said, Miss Tustison, would you like for us to take care of him? I said, well, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, they'll take care of him. I guess they did, because he didn't put his feet up on the table then. And in another class, I guess it was that same class, in a way, a cooking class. They were to make a cake. One of the boys forgot to put the baking powder in it. Well, the cake came out like pancakes. And one of the boys to take that home to show his dad that he could cook. I said, you're not about to take that. So anyway, but it was interesting. I enjoyed it.
Did the children change much during the time you were teaching, when discipline or in character or anything like that during that 25
Well,
so years?
Yes, they
You
did.
could tell a difference.
The last, I don't know how many years, maybe 5 years, the drugs started coming into school. And one of the doctors in Hobart, which was the next town south, is the one that supplied the drugs for them. But they finally caught up with him, and he spent some time in prison, I guess. But then when he got out, he got his job back. He's still, I guess, still over there. I don't know. And it was my job, if a girl was out of class a long time from other classes, it was my job to go in the bathroom and get them out. They were in there smoking, you know. So that was one of the unhappy occasions. But everything else, I can't think of anything else that happened that was unhappy.
That's a long time to teach. A lot of children came through your class.
Right.
Taught a lot of girls how to cook.
I still get letters from some of them. And one girl married one of Herbert's students, and they live down close to Ravi, Medill, close to Medill. And they have a big pecan grove down there. And they harvest, I don't know how many. Anyway, they sent me a picture of this big semi filled with pecans from their place. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite recipe that you would teach them?
Well, no. We just,
Did you make pie crusts?
oh yeah, we had 3 different recipes. 3 different recipes.
I was thinking maybe you tried that baked banana recipe.
He said he thought you might have made them do the baked banana.
No, no. I told him about it though. But no, I didn't do that. So, yeah.
Chicken fried steak.
Oh, yeah. And the senior girls would have a dinner for 2 of the teachers at the end of school each year, the seniors. It was always enjoyable. They learned how to set the table correctly and all of it. Yeah, and we got to eat. I probably had 8 or 9 students. I didn't have big classes, which was enjoyable. But
Well, you were telling us when we got here how you wash dishes. Do you want to let's go through that for the tape, because people won't know that today.
okay. Well, we were studying procedures in the kitchen of different things, and one of them was how to wash dishes properly. If you stored them on the left side. Then you wash dishes in the sink on the right, rinsed them in the left sink, and then you stored them up in the cabinet. But if you were stored on the right side, it was just the opposite. And one girl went home and told her mother how to do that. So at church the next day, she was a good friend, she said, what was her name? Goodness. Anyway, called her daughter by name. Said she told me I was washing dishes wrong. I said, well, just make it easy on yourself, you know. That's what it was. Oh, yeah.
And which do you wash first, the glasses or the utensils?
Well, we washed the glasses first. We rinsed them first and dried them, got them out of that water. Yeah, they had to shine. Yeah. So, anyway, we washed the glasses and the silverware first, and then the dishes and the pots and pans.
Last, pots and pans last. That makes sense too. Alex, is that how you do yours?
This girl's name was Linda. I couldn't think of it.
And would you teach them how to sew?
Oh, yes.
How many machines would you have?
We had 6 machines. And I was there probably 8 years. And we got new machines then. All of them were singers to begin with. And most of them were singers, but I think that we had one that did a lot of extra things that the singer didn't have.
Would you hem by hand or with the machine?
By hand.
That's hard to learn how to do.
Right. One girl, when she was making her slacks, she sewed it up wrong. She sewed the middle together. And of course it was just one thing like that. And she brought it up to me. She said, Miss Tustison, what's wrong? I looked at her and I said, honey, you sewed the centers together instead of the sides. But she is a beautiful seamstress now.
You taught her well then.
Yeah, and I got a what am I trying to say? Birthday card from her, and she reminded me of some of the things that she remembered from some of the classes. She had 2 sisters. They all look alike. And they all graduated from OC out here.
So once you retired, what did you do? Once you retired from teaching, what did you do?
Retired. Well, at that time, my father had died and Mother was living with us. So we bought, they were building houses on the right south of Carnegie. And we went out there and selected one and had it moved out on our property there north of Carnegie, and bricked it, and the inside, what we did something to the inside anyway. So we had a 3-bedroom home out there.
And she moved in with you, your mother?
Yes, yeah, we gave her the bedroom that had the bath adjoining, and we had the other one.
So did you actually retire, or did you take a second job?
I was asked to teach at Carnegie occasionally, but I said no. I didn't want any more kids, because at that time they were unruly. And I knew how students, I guess you'd say, were bad to the teachers. So I didn't want that.
Well, did you two travel at that point?
Yes.
A little bit anyway?
Yes. We had been, well, before that, Herbert had 2 weeks off at summertime, and we always took a trip back when our kids were just little. We've been in every state west of Mississippi, and all but we haven't been to Florida or Georgia, but we've been up through Arkansas and Tennessee and
Got all those
Carolinas.
small New England towns? All those small New England states?
No, we didn't get there. We got as far, we were going to New York City one summer, but it was so hot, and we had dressed to go to New York, but we got to Oklahoma City, to the zoo, and we stopped to eat our lunch. I said, Herbert, are you sure you want to go to New York? Well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't want to go, it's too hot. So we headed west, went to Colorado to his sisters, lived out there. Summer closed, but they had 3 daughters that were about the same age as ours, so they loaned us there. They loaned clothes to the children. So we got through that. We were there a week with them.
Got to see the country.
Yes, we went quite a few places there.
So when did he pass? When did Herbert pass?
1981,
Till
July the 14th, 3 days before his birthday.
So he had about 10 years of retirement that he could enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, that he had retired from teaching at Votech, but he did some, well, he had cattle up on his farm up north at Edmond, and he raised a big garden up there, and he'd bring the vegetables home, and I'd get them ready to sell. People from town had come out and buy them. Had some beautiful tomatoes and cantaloupe, and there on the 20 acres that I still have, we had a 1/4 of a mile row of asparagus. And one summer I sold $100 worth of asparagus. People found out that I had it, you know, and Herbert did most of the picking because he could crawl and go down. You'd have to get down, you know, with a knife.
Sure.
Cut it. But he'd do that, and he'd bring it in, and I'd get it ready to sell.
I'm supposing you did a lot of canning on your own.
Well, no, but that time it was freezing.
Freeze it. Okay. Yeah. Fast forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't do any canning or any gardening. Well, we had a little garden too there at Sentinel, but not much.
Well, do you remember when not pressure cookers? I guess pressure cookers did come in while you were
Yeah.
doing home
Yeah.
ec. That was quite an invention.
I had one, but I didn't use it too much. I've forgotten what I canned. But most of the things were frozen.
So you got to see that, and then microwaves,
Mm-hmm.
and then crock pots or slow cookers.
Yeah. Had all of those, and I still have a microwave, and I have a little, with those little crock pots, just a little, I still have that, cook beans in it, and it cooks real good.
Well, over the course of your life, what do you think's been the biggest invention?
The
And-
biggest invention.
Yeah, in your opinion.
Oh, the spaceship.
Okay, going to the moon. Yeah.
Yeah, going to the moon. I remember my mother watching television, and she did just baffle her mind. She just, she said, here she went across from one side of Oklahoma to the other in a covered wagon, and here she just couldn't imagine people going to the moon.
Mhm.
And I couldn't either, really. Yes.
Well, education was important to her too.
Oh, yes. 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 She went to school in Alfalfa, where they first settled, until she, I guess, was in high school. Then they moved into Carnegie. She went through the 11th grade, and she had been going with my father a year or so when they decided to get married. So they were married September the 3rd, 1911. And
Not too soon after statehood.
right, right.
Well, did you ever think you would make it to 100?
Oh, goodness, no. I still can't.
Well, what are some of your secrets? What do you think's contributed to your longevity?
Well, I didn't drink and I didn't smoke. And I ate good. We always had good food, even in the Depression. We lived in town and during part of that time. And you've never heard of lamb's quarter. It's kind of like, well, it's really, I think it's a weed, but it's kind of like, well, it grows up on the stem, and it has leaves out on it. And the leaves, you break it off at the bottom of the growth of the leaves, and it tastes like spinach. Mm-hmm. It's good. Yes, we had those, and then we had a cow and chickens, and at one time we had a goat. Mother was ill, and the doctor prescribed goat's milk. She couldn't have cow's milk. It didn't agree with her. And it was my job to milk the goat. My brother, it was his job to milk the cow. I couldn't milk that cow. I didn't have enough strength in my hands. But the goat was easy. And so that was my job.
So the lamb's quarter weed you would eat
Uh-huh.
during the Depression?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds kind of like a poke salad or something.
Yes, kind
Similar
of
to
like
that.
poke salad.
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, kind of.
What, you have a picture of it?
Uh-huh.
Let's see. Yeah, that's it.
Almost like a thistle in a way,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of looks
No,
like
I've
a
seen them. I
thistle.
didn't know you could eat them.
Oh, yeah. Lamb's quarter.
How would you cook them, or would you?
Well,
Eat-
yeah, just steam them like
Steam
you do other, like poke salad or whatever. Now, poke salad, you had to cook it down, pour that water off, and then put fresh water on it. Yeah. Take that, it was kind of bitter. Take that bitter taste out. Mhm. Have you ever eaten poke salad?
It's been a long time, yes.
Yeah.
It's been a long time though. And ramps. I don't know if they had ramps here. It's got a wild onion.
Oh, wow, yes.
Really?
We had some of those on the Carnegie farm. I remember seeing them kind of out in the pasture, not far from the house.
What did they have to, did you remember rationing
Oh,
during the
yes.
Depression?
Well, we were given a booklet of, and some of the leaves were $1, some were 50 cents, and some, and then we had coins. I forgot what they were called along about that time too. And you had to have so much. Of course, like today, had to have so much money in that folder. I guess it was a folder they had. But the time I married, we didn't have, well, I guess, no, by the time our daughter was born, we didn't have those. But we had the coins. I remember we still had those little coins.
I guess when your daughters were born too, you did diapers, cloth diapers,
Oh, yes, right.
way before Pampers and such.
Yes.
Laundry got to be a challenge.
Oh, it did. And before we got to Sentinel, well, at Freedom, we had a sink with a pump that you had to siphon. You had to put water in it and then pump and to get the water up. That was the experience there. Then we went to Ouachita. We had a big bucket that we took to our neighbors. They had an outside faucet. We went over there and got our water. They owned the house that we rented, so that's where we got our water. And when we first moved there, Jean was about 3 when this happened. No, she wasn't about 3. What am I talking about? Not quite, well, around 2, I'll say. I had let her out the back door, and it was fenced in, but it had a gate in the back, and she learned how to open that gate, and one day I went out and she was gone. I was hysterical. I went over to the neighbors and I said, "Will you boys help me find Jean Ann?" So one of them in the Ouachita River was about 3 blocks maybe from where we lived. I could just see her down there in that water. And anyway, John went out their back gate, and the sunflowers were about 6 feet tall. And she was standing there, just outside their gate, with a sunflower in her little hand, picking the leaves off, petals off. So he brought her in. He said, "Are you going to spank her?" And I said, "No, I'm going to love her." I was so happy to see her back.
So you fixed that gate so she couldn't do it again?
I sure did. Oh, yes.
Well, you've told a story about her. Do you have one about the other daughter?
Well, yes. When she was little, she learned, when she was learning to talk, she called her daddy Ai. And her hands were Ai. Her daddy was Oi. She couldn't say. And then she advanced a little bit when she got in school. She couldn't talk plain. The first grade teacher told us that she had flat feet, said if you will put corrective shoes on her, that will correct her speech. Well, we didn't really believe it, but we thought we would try. So we took her to Oklahoma City to a special school, a shoe store. Put shoes on her up above her ankle. And do you know that by the end of school, she was talking plain? I told Miss Thomas, I said, you knew what you were talking about, because that did correct. And she wore corrective shoes then until she was probably in maybe third grade, but not the high top boot. They had other, kind. So that was a story about her.
That's interesting, isn't it, Alex?
So I want to go back to childhood, being that you were born on the 25th. How did that work out with presents?
I had birthday, I had Christmas. I had 2 presents, and I still do.
All in one day?
Yeah, for Christmas dinner, for Christmas giving, they gave me, and still have 2 presents. One year, I was 13, I think. We wasn't that old. Anyway, we lived with our grandparents, and they had an upstairs that we didn't live in. We just stored stuff. So Mother had told us, well, we had been told before not to go up there. But this one day she told us specifically not to go upstairs. Well, she shouldn't have said that, because that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to know what was up there. Sure enough, there was my cedar chest up there. She had a quilt over it, but the legs showed. My brother had a big trunk, and his was up there with a quilt over it. So I knew what I was getting, but she didn't know that. And it was years before I ever told her that I had found that cedar chest before I got it.
That was for your hope chest, is that what they called them then?
And when I moved, my oldest granddaughter in Kansas wanted that, and she got it.
Those are prized possessions.
Yeah. And I had, well, they just came in and told me what they wanted. It was when I was moving, or just before I moved. So one granddaughter got my chest freezer. She got that. She got Mother's china cabinet, which was, by now, it's over 100 years old. And she still has that. And then that other daughter got a set of dishes, little dishes, and little stuff like that. And my grandson got a lot of things of my daddy's things. My father was a policeman, and he had his badge and and his whistle, he had 2 different kinds of whistles, and knucks. You know what knucks are? Do you know what knucks are?
Those
Yeah, those, you know, they fit over your hand. And then he had a thing about that long, and it was leather, and on one end it had a big stone in it, and that's what it hit with. It was his job when he was night watchman to go out and corral the Indians. We had a lot of Indians there, and they'd be having trouble and call for help, and Daddy'd go out with his knucks and his police outfit and take care of that. And then the night watchman retired. The policeman retired, and Daddy then stepped up from night watchman to be the police there at Carnegie.
I bet you minded at home then.
I sure did. When we'd drive in town, I'd say, "Now, Herbert, be sure you don't do anything wrong." I didn't want Daddy to have to put a fine on him or something.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, what's life like? What's a typical day like for you today at 100?
today.
Well, you know, what time do you get up? How do you usually start your day, and what do you do?
Well, every day's about the same. I get up, my alarm goes off at 6:30, and I get up by 7. I just lay there. Hate to get up, you know, it's so comfortable right there in bed. So I get up at 7 and I go in and get my bath and get partly dressed and make my bed. And then I finish dressing and get down to breakfast. And on Wednesdays, they have omelets. And of course, we have a bigger crowd on that day than the other days. And visit a little bit with the people there and go home. And if the mail is in, I get the mail and go home, read. And now it's income tax and letter writing before I do anything else. And I'm about to get all my stuff together. I hope to get it finished this weekend and get sent off.
And you do your own income taxes?
No, my part is to sort out everything and get everything, you know, and then I send it to the CPA at Weatherford, and they do it. And some of my bills I have automatic pay, and some of them I like to write myself, and I do that. And then my Bible's right there on next to my chair, and I read that. And I also have one in the bathroom. So I'm well supplied. And the excuse me. By that time, it's lunchtime, and I come down, and there's several of us that go in the activity room and sit in those chairs and wait for the door to open. And we visit, of course, and go in, and we have a certain place. And I have a certain place, they kind of look up to me on that, saving that place for me. So then we get our drinks and silverware and stuff, and a lady comes around and take her order. Then after a little bit, food's ordered. Then after that, it's nap time. And then sometimes, though, before I go up to nap, I go out in the sun, and when the sun is shining, go out and sit in the sun a little bit. And used to walk around the building, but I don't do that so much anymore because it's the sidewalk in that part of on the south side is rough, and I'm just afraid that I'll fall. Don't want to do that. But a friend that has been here just a few months longer than I have, and I walk the halls. We go up on 6, and we go down Act on 5, and we do 6, 5, 4, 3, and 2, and then we're at this end on 2, and I said, well, let's go home. And so we go home. Then it's when nap time comes. So then after that, I just fool around doing little things, and time to eat again. That's all we do is eat and sleep. So anyway.
Do you have anything on your bucket list you still want to do at 100? Something you've never done but you still want to do?
Something that I've never done. Well, let's see. Live to be 101. Well, yes, I'd like to travel again. I'd like to go to some of these, not the New England states, but some of these other states, and into Georgia or Alabama. But I've been to Old Mexico twice. I'd like to go to Canada. Haven't been to Canada. But my kids go overseas all the time. I'd like to do that, but I know I can't. It's just too much for me now.
You said you read some. What do you read?
Well, I have magazines that I did, but I've let them, most of them expire, but we have magazines down in the beauty shop. Go down there, and then we have a library up on 5.
Okay.
And I go up there, and I like to read westerns. Yeah, I've read LeCoeur. It's one of the authors. Have you ever heard of him?
No, and Louis L'Amour.
L'Amour. Yeah, that's it. What did I say? LeCoeur.
LeCoeur.
L'Amour. Yeah, I like his.
He was popular.
And I read the one on Queen Elizabeth and the one on the Prince and Princess. There's a small one with their baby in it, and they're expecting another one.
That's any day, or I guess soon.
Well, do you have a motto or philosophy you live by?
Well, let's see. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
the golden rule.
Right. Right. But some people aren't like that. We have them here. We have one fellow that, with his walker, he would run over you if you didn't get out of his way. It's kind of amazing. Everybody knows him.
Well, what's the biggest challenge at 100?
The biggest challenge.
Yes, what's the biggest challenge you have to... You hear pretty well, you see pretty good, and you get around. What's the biggest challenge?
Oh, goodness sakes.
Do you still drive?
No.
Okay.
I left that when I was 94. Drove until I was 94. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
The biggest challenge is going to the grocery store. I still try to go to the grocery store. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I went, let's see, last time I was at the store was 2 weeks ago. And go by myself. Well, I go on the van, but I go in the store by myself. And most everyone goes to Walmart, but that's too big. I go to Homeland, and that's I like that. And the people there know me, you know, and
More manageable.
yes, they help me if I need help.
Good. And do you go to church? Or they have it here?
No, they have church here, but my church is on TV.
Okay.
Was church an important part of your life growing up?
Oh yeah, I've been to church all my life, I guess. Is that what you asked me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when I lived at Sentinel, my husband and I both were teachers in the I was with young kids and he was with the teenagers. And one year, while we were sponsors at NYF sponsors, we took a trip to southwest. We went in a big truck that one of our students' father had, and he put a tarp on it and seats in there. And excuse me. We went to El Paso and across to Mexico down there. And while we were down there was a little town right south of us, of El Paso. So they told us that they were having oh, thank you. They were having a fair down there. It's good. So the lady sponsor, which was an older lady, and my husband and I got on the little rickety cab and went down. Well, the only thing they had down there was some of the Mexicans in a circle with the shoes made from inner tubes, you know, and they were cut like that, and they were dancing with those shoes on, and they had a can of some kind, it had some kind of drink in it, and then there was a cup with a chicken or two in it. That was their fare. And we were so disappointed. But anyway, we were standing back behind this group singing. And one little fella he was just a little kid, got tired. He came out and squatted down behind my husband. Well, the fellow that was managing that had a whip, and he came back behind her. We didn't know it until he cracked that whip right behind hers. Of course, it scared us all. And he put that little fella back in the ring to dance. And the van, or the cad or whatever, was supposed to come back in 30 minutes. We were down there practically all of 2 hours, just standing around, shaking, where I was, wondering what next was going to happen. But finally we got back across the border, and I said, I don't want to go down there anymore.
But you'll go north.
Yeah, right. Well, can I go back a ways?
Sure, sure.
At Sentinel, the girls were both gone, and Mother was with us, and we had exchange students, and Mimo, the nicest Mexican young fella, came as an exchange student, and we got him for 3 months. There were 4 families there that took him for 3 months each. I wish we could have had him longer than that. And he and Mother were good pals. And in the evening, they'd get our evening meal. And that was quite an experience. And it was a wedding. One of his friends was married there at Hobart, and we got to go to the reception. And he would introduce Mother as his American grandmother. Of course, that tickled her. She was such a lovable little old lady.
Just like you.
Uh-huh.
Well, when history's written, what would you like it to say about you? How would you like to be remembered, in other words?
Well, let's see. It's a nice, lovable little old grandmother. One that still had her mind and could enjoy other people, and that raised 2 lovable daughters. With my husband, he was kind of like me. He was just a lovable person. I was going to bring my book down that my grandson put together for me, of my 100th birthday. Would you like to see it?
We might see it if we've got time afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Anything else you want to say before we close off?
That I've been here 14 and a half years and I've enjoyed it. Good. We have good care. And they're just helpful all the way around.
You've had a very good life.
Yes, very good.
Wouldn't change
No.
anything or much of anything.
Yeah. most everything's like it should be.
Okay.
I just wish I could walk better, but that's not to be, I guess.
Well, you just have to keep moving somehow.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you for sharing your stories with us today. It's been great.
It's been a pleasure.